Hey there, BookTube. Noah. Everyone who reads it must converse is the channel. Thanks for coming back by. Today I'm going to go over some of the best short works, short fiction that I've read all year long. I have been doing big books, a big book every month, and by big book I mean over 700 pages. Most of the time the books have been over 1,000 pages apiece every month for 2021. So I had to be a lot more discerning as to what I choose to read in between these big books, right? Because I didn't want to fall off my pace, and I did very well. I'm very happy with how the big book takeover 2021 has turned out, and but that's for another video. This one is going to be the best short fiction that I've read over this past year, and there's a lot of good stuff because, like I said, I was a little more discerning and discriminating between what I'm going to choose, and I didn't want to waste my time, right? I wanted to read good stuff. I started off, and the first two here are rereads for over this last year with 100 Years of Solitude, Gabriel Garcia Marquez. I started this year off rereading 100 Years of Solitude with a group. It was a great read along, and a lot of great discussion came out of that. And then maybe halfway through the year, we did Master and Margarita. I never had done this translation, Pever and Volokhonsky's translation. I definitely recommend it. I recommend it over the Mira Ginsburg translation. It's just flows it flows well. It's more lucid. The Mira Ginsburg. I had a couple of false starts on reading that book, and that just it doesn't really happen to me. I just read what I want to read. So those were great. Another that I read that I gotta say is going to be one that people don't know very much. This is a small press out of Slovenia is publishing an author named David Vardeman. This flip book, Suddenly This Summer, and April is the Cruelest Month. April is the Cruelest Month might be uh, the best short story that I've read this year. Um, it is short. I mean, as far as a short story goes, let's see how many pages we got. We're at like 100 pages, right? So a bit of a long short story. Maybe it's pushing novella. I don't know, but it's great. David Vardeman has this thing where you can never predict. It's so unpredictable, and you're not trying to predict anything. You know what I mean? You're just in this kind of story, and it's so weird, and people are so dark in a way. It has this kind of darkness to it, this kind of grotesque. Um, I don't want to say that there's. It's almost like a funny darkness. It's awesome. Okay, it's awesome. I haven't done any content on this. I will. There will be content on this flip book on my channel soon because it was just amazing. Um, Suddenly This Summer and April is the Cruelest Month by David Vardeman. I read a couple of books back to back of by Ursula K. LeGuin, and so I read The Lathe of Heaven. It's fantastic. This was a blistering fast read, 175 pages, and I read it in like 3 days, 3 sittings. It's really really cool. The premise is really really cool, and it's totally still just right where you want to be for some good sci-fi. I was really happy I read it, and then right off the heels of that, I read The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula K. Le Guin. Jack at Rambling Raconteur said that this was almost a perfect book to him, and I concur. It's great. There's not much you can do as far as saying, oh well, you should have done this. You could make it better by that. It for what it is perfect. Um, a wonderful story, very layered, very deep, and by the end of it, you can think on it. I've thought of it over and over. Just thought, wow, what this story did. Thought of different aspects of what this story did, and what it really explored because it's deceptive. Um, you don't realize how deep of a story it is until you really get there, and then you're like, wow, she's just a master. She's a master storyteller, Ursula K. Le Guin. And I'll continue reading all of her stuff. These are all the best stuff that I've read. Not all of what I've read, but the best. I touched on Letters to a Young Poet again this year. I read my translation before while I was waiting for this to come, and then when I got this, I read this again. This is Letters to a Young Poet by Rilke with the letters from the young poet um back to him. I'll say it's not. I'll say I don't think it's essential. It is very cool to have that correspondence and to be able to give some context, more context to what Rilke is referring to, because the young poet does share poetry, does ask him pointed questions about craft and things like that. So it's beautiful. Um, Another that I read that I loved was John Williams' first novel. This is Nothing But the Night. And a lot of these, there are videos on my channel kind of exploring these books. Okay, so if there's anything that's kind of getting your attention, just look on my playlist, and you'll find something about most of these. And if you don't, then it's in a live where I've talked with another booktuber about the book. Nothing But the Night by John Williams, author of Stoner, Augustus, and Butcher's Crossing. This is a very, very cool debut novel. It's a quintessential debut novel, I think. It does exactly what a debut novel, what you expect it to do. Tell you a very succinct, straight story that has a lot of power, has something unique to it. The author is unique. The author is his voice is there, and very compelling. The narrative style is cool, and the end is completely satisfying. Unexpected, definitely the end hits you in a way that you don't expect, but it is very, very satisfying. I'd recommend Nothing But the Night to pretty much anybody. Um, can't wait to read more John Williams. Really, I did a couple of Theodore Sturgeon stories this year. There was The Dreaming Jewels, which was also titled The Synthetic Man. That's a very cool story. But my favorite of the year was More Than Human by Theodore Sturgeon. This was my favorite of Theodore Sturgeon's that I read. This is a very, very cool book. A cool idea. And it is about a kind of a collective of psychics, or human beings that have some kind of extra power, that are a collective. They all work together and they form another kind of ultra being. Um, Theodore Sturgeon likes to work with really, uh, I want to say, abused and neglected and very, very damaged and maybe even destroyed in ways human beings. The uh the characters in here are not pleasant, but the story is very, very cool, and I definitely will read more Sturgeon. More Than Human was a very cool surprise, something that I didn't expect. This year was my first time reading um was first time reading Virginia Woolf, and I read Mrs. Dalloway. It's fantastic. Just kind of an honorable mention there. And also William Faulkner. I had never read The Sound and the Fury. So this year I had read this. This is one of the greatest books that I've ever read. It is so deep. and amazing how, I just kind of think the amount that Faulkner had to have in his mind when writing this story, and then to write it from the angle that he wrote it. It's I almost can't wrap my head around it, around why and how he did it. Um, you know, it's a very, the writer's craft. Faulkner was definitely a master, and that kind of thing is apparent in this, and it's beautifully done. And there's more more Faulkner to come. But also, I will say that I read a bunch of short of David Foster Wallace. My first novel of David Foster Wallace that I've ever read, besides his essays and journalism and short stories, I read Broom of the System. This book is hilarious. This book is hilarious, and the end is so funny. It's just great. It's just great. Read it. I thoroughly enjoyed myself. I read it with Tom, LA Books, and we had great conversation. It was just awesome. It is absurdity, almost pushed to the level of, surreal, and ultimately chaotic. I mean, it is like hysterical realism. It there's an aspect of it that's complete fantasy. It's just ridiculous. It's everything. It's a very, very cool book. David Foster Wallace's debut novel, The Broom of the System. I've done a lot of content on um David Foster Wallace's short stories Oblivion this year. This is my favorite short story collection by David Foster Wallace, for sure. This is his last collection that was published in his lifetime. His last collection of short stories that he came up with, and they are very, very cool. There's a lot of cool stuff. There's a lot of wild stuff in here. It'll keep you thinking. It'll have your mind going, and it's a mind blow. I did content on many of the individual stories in here to explore them because it really was so fun. So fun. Last Christmas, 1649, open parentheses, close parentheses. Ami is a wonderful booktuber and a great friend, is what it is. He gifted me Borges collected fictions, and anybody who's been watching my channel knows that I completely fell in love with this book and have done a lot of content on individual stories and read them with um, a number of booktubers, none less than Yasmin over at To the Lit House, and we've had such amazing conversation. I love Borges. There is no reason not to read Borges. It is so short. He's a master of this kind of flash fiction. Some of the little pieces are 1 or 2 pages. But I would definitely recommend, if you've never come in contact with Borges, the collection Fictions and the collection The Aleph and Other Stories. Those two collections are tip top. It's amazing. And Borges is amazing. What a wonderful writer. So now for the top 5 of the year. So the top 5 of short works that I've come in contact with over this year. Earlier in the year, I read Pedro Paramo for the first time. Juan Rulfo. This is a really cool book. It's scary. It's a ghost story, kind of. uh, Read it and find out, what it is. But it is very dark. It almost felt like reading a David Lynch movie at some points. It was very strange and very, very cool. It's cool as hell. And you see how short it is. It's so powerful. This work is like 125 pages. And it is just so gripping and cool. I was very happy to read it. I did do some content on it, but it is during one of my lives, so it might be a little hard to find, but hopefully I put it in the description box that I was talking about this with Yasmin at To the Lit House on one of my lives, because we had a lot of fun with it. This is number 5. Um, Number 4, I want to call out. This is why I kind of honorable mentioned Mrs. Dalloway. Number 4 is The Waves by Virginia Woolf. This book is awesome. I've heard people say that, it's a more of a larger work than what Virginia Woolf usually goes for as far as scope and what it tries to do. I love this kind of thing. This is a beautiful, beautiful work. I did do content on this on the channel, and it's almost unbeatable. This is an amazing book. You follow a group of kids all the way through their life, and it's really, really cool. So number 3 I will say is probably one of my favorite books of all time. I can't wait to reread it. I think about it a lot. I've thought about this book over and over since reading it, and it's As I Lay Dying by William Faulkner. Um, what a just an amazing and beautiful read. It's unbelievable. Every chapter is from the internal consciousness of a different character, repeating, of course, but it has the name of the character at the start of the chapter, and then you just get a chapter from their perspective, and you really, pretty soon you know these characters. You start seeing who they are and the situation that they're in goes from bad to worse to a complete cluster. It's hilarious. It's heart-wrenching, and it's ultimately just a very powerful work that I don't think many books come close in the amount of space that this one takes up. It's one of my favorites of all time. Number 2 is I gotta say it is the posthumous memoirs of Cubas by Machado de Assis, and I couldn't find the book. How crazy is that, right? It's like when I'm done filming this, I'll go, walk through the house and glance at bookshelves as I'm walking, and I'll see it. I've looked all over for that book, and I can't find it. I wonder if I've given it to someone. I'll do that with something that is this good, as good as the posthumous memoirs of Cubas is. But the posthumous memoirs of Cubas is a book that you don't expect. It is a book that is completely feels so new, so original, so interestingly unique, and it was written, in the 1800s. It's ridiculous. It's mind-blowing what it does and how it does it, and it's ultimately a comedy. The posthumous memoirs of Cubas is a send-up of confessionals and you know this kind of writing your own memoirs or by autobiography. It's ridiculous, and Machado de Assis is having a lot of fun with it, and you will have a lot of fun reading it. So definitely grab it. Posthumous Memoirs of Cubas by Machado de Assis is number 2, and then maybe my number 1 of the year. It might be because I did have read this so recently that I'm like, okay, this is number 1. But it is a beautiful and amazing work. This is Too Loud a Solitude by Hurrabal. Um, this is a love letter to everything that we love on BookTube. All writing, all creativity, art, this is a love letter to words and paper, and being someone who lives by uh their they're taking part in stories, and it's great. It's 100 pages. My edition here is actually 98 pages. I totally recommend it. You can't go wrong. You can't go wrong. Get it. It is unbelievably good. And I do have content out on that. I would love for uh to get feedback, anybody who has read it. So thank you very much, BookTube. I'll show you the spread here. This is the best books of 2021. That's right. Thank you very much, BookTube. And I'll catch you on the next one. Bye bye.